All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Thank you for joining us for another exciting discussion today. I'm your host, Lauren McGee, Customer Success Account Manager at Grapevines, and our mission at Grapevines is to help you sell more effectively by pairing data visibility with an actionable sales execution roadmap. As a team at Grapevines, we're very excited to host our final webinar in a series of webinars based on actionable insights for data-informed sales. In today's discussion, we're looking towards the future and touching on data you should be looking at to drive sales specifically related to the beverage alcohol industry. Now, before we get started and introduce our guest today, we have a few housekeeping items we want to review. As a reminder, all of your microphones are muted, but we do encourage you to participate through the chat and QA features. We'll leave some time at the end to answer some of your questions. We are recording this webinar and we'll be sending you a link to the recording later this week should multitasking keep you from fully digesting all that we have to say today. And note, this webinar is actually our final episode in this particular series, but fear not, we have our creative juices flowing and we will be doing more live web-based content for you to consume in the near future. So make sure you're signed up for our newsletter to find out what we'll be discussing next. And if you're joining us today for the first time and you're not familiar with who we are and what we do, Ondavi Solutions with the Grapevines platform is the leader in sales execution for beverage suppliers, distributors, and agencies. We provide data insights that drive superior decision-making and ROI across the beverage alcohol supply chain. We help transform transactional data into actionable intelligence for more efficient and effective beverage sales and trade marketing. In today's discussion, we'll be dipping into some of the challenges that each of our speakers have overcome, and we'll be talking about data you should be tracking on to grow your business, including changes in sales engagements and go-to-market strategies, and how these changes in our industry have created new data that should be on your radar. We have some movers and shakers here with us today. Both bring extensive industry knowledge from very different points of view. So it goes without saying it's going to be a lively discussion. Our first guest hails from the second largest distributor in the nation, known for their core values of family, customer focus, accountability, honesty, and professionalism. Alex Blake is a forward-thinking and data-driven leader with almost 10 years experience in the beverage alcohol industry. She is currently CRM manager at, you guessed it, R&DC, where she has helped bridge the gap between data collection and utilization. She has worked across multiple levels of the three-tier system in supplier business development, analytics, and marketing. She aims to combine her analytical skills and passion for exploring to maximize the tools at her disposal to continue to deliver best-in-class service to all of her customers, whether they may be supplier partners, sales team members, or retail accounts. When she's not exploring data, she's one of those go-getter morning people who actually enjoy waking up at 5 a.m. to sweat it out at Orange Theory, after which you can find her, no doubt, eating something to replace all the calories that she burned earlier that day in the kitchen. Otherwise, she's spending time with her husband and their cute little dachshund, Axel. Alex, I have a whole new level of respect for you. It seems very fitting that you would choose a workout option that incorporates technology with those heart rate monitors. I've tried Orange Theory and it is not for the shy or faint-hearted, so I applaud you. Way to go, Alex. Say hello to our attendees.
Thanks, Lauren. I appreciate that. And I wouldn't have it any other way.
Did you go this morning?
I did.
To prep for this webinar? Fantastic. Love it.
I had to be ready.
Yes. Our second guest today, Kareem Latif, MBA, has been a trailblazing leader in branded entertainment, sales, and marketing innovation for over 16 years within the wine and spirits industry. Some may know him for his leadership within cultural marketing at Pernod Ricard and Diageo, but Kareem can actually be accredited for his foresight and foundation-setting contributions in the growing trend of celebrity-owned spirit brands and influencer marketing as a strategy. In 2010, he was an early pioneer in the creation of brand-owned TV series with the launch of Smirnoff Vodka's Master of the Mix DJ reality show, which aired on BET and VH1. Demonstrating a natural aptitude for disruptive marketing with a competitive industry, Kareem co-developed and directed Pernod Ricard's first ever culture marketing ecosystem to drive popularity of top brands among multicultural millennials. Kareem most recently launched Craft Brand Theory, a brand consulting and slingshot program aimed at centering underrepresented creatives and entrepreneurs onto the global stage. Wow, Kareem. From major global spirit companies to reality TV, your experience is impressive. But
Thank you.
You know, I gotta ask, we're talking about alk here. What is your go-to drink after a long, hard day's work?
Will be just very consistent. Jameson and ginger.
Okay,
Very simple.
I like it. Simple, timeless, perfect. All right. Jumping into our first question today. With the large shift we've seen in go-to-market strategies, what day-to-day practices have changed that drive data? And is this creating new data that should be tracked? Alex, would you mind starting us off today?
Of course, I'll go ahead and get that started. So when the pandemic hit early last year, Grapevines became a crucial source of information for our sales teams at RNDC. Since we weren't allowed really to go into the accounts to see our customers, we really needed to drive the collection and maintenance of our contact information. And as many of you guys probably know, sometimes our sales teams don't follow all instructions and store their contact information in other sources, such as cell phones or Excel sheets or Box. And we really wanted them to store directly on our CRM tool, right? This contact information was not only important to our sales team, but it also was the foundation for our launch of our e-commerce platform known as eRNDC, which definitely went into full-fledged launch mode in 2020. We were using this contact information that we were gathering through Grapevines for our e-commerce team to get in contact with our customers. And, you know, to be honest, to this day, we continue on track this information, not only throughout the pandemic, but, you know, today we continue on trying to drive that collection forward. And definitely this practice is here to stay.
Awesome. I know it's tricky practice with CRM solutions. It's only as good as the data that you put into it, right? So if your teammates aren't utilizing it and feeding new, fresh data in the system, it's a tough sell. So user adoption is very high. I know you know that. You've spent a lot of time training your team.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yes. Kareem, what have you seen within your experiences?
Well, a lot. You know, as a result of the social distancing, you know, during the height of the pandemic, you know, around maybe that April, May timeframe and onwards, consumers were spending a lot more time online, virtually connecting with others, their friends and family that maybe didn't live with them, that they were connecting across the world with, streaming entertainment. At least I know I did a lot of entertainment, purchasing goods and services, you know, and that ubiquitous at-home audience. We were consumers and we were marketers. We can experience it. So that at-home audience was increasingly looking for real-time information, connections and engaging with their family and friends, as I mentioned before. And then all of that activity, all in all, led to this all-time high across all the platforms like Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, Snapchat, WhatsApp, even Pinterest.
Yes.
You know, I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this. If you use Pinterest, when the real world was open, you were just saving boards, saving things. You were too busy to do anything. But now that the pandemic hit, you went back to revisit those boards, to add on to it and start now modifying your house, remodeling your house, doing some interior design, whatever it is that you were inspired by. Now you can get to work to do that because you're spending so much time at home. So that drove a lot of activity across all the platforms. So the pandemic actually accelerated this pre-existing industry and consumer trends that we were seeing before. It forced marketers to exercise agility, as like I like to say, build the plane and fly it too. They had to plan in real time, and they had to have the confidence to balance marketing intuition with the available data at hand. So this pre-pandemic data that we once prioritized, like commercial sales and digital, now was purely digital and social media. That's all we had to look forward to. So, you know, we were now instead of looking at rate of sales for retail stores or on-premise bars and nightclubs, we were now looking at click-through rates and add to cart rates and number of shares and saves of content.
Yeah.
number of comments, sentiment, willingness to suggest to a friend. So those are things I saw that were changes.
Whole new, field of things to track now. I know personally speaking, I'm wondering, I don't know if you guys have this every Sunday, you have those average screen time of your
Yes.
week. I wonder if we compare those
Yes.
year over year. This time last year before the pandemic, your average screen time was like 3 hours. Now we're looking at 10 hours per day. And gosh, it's the
It's
new,
embarrassing now.
I'm going to call it now. The new 2021 or 2022 New Year's resolution is not going to be to lose weight. It's going to be like lose screen time average hours. I'm thinking that's where we're going. Okay. Question number 2. What are you doing to drive sales engagements? Akram, you're on a roll here. Let's talk about, you're talking about the sales metrics that the new sales metrics that you're talking about here. What are you doing to drive sales engagements with all those clicks and click-throughs and metrics that online metrics that you're tracking?
You'll hear me use this term a lot if you're around me, social listening. So we increase our social listening efforts by upgrading our tracking software, first of all. We
social
also
listening. I love that.
Yeah.
You just talk social listening. You got to brand that. That's great.
Yeah, it's very important during this time. If you're not doing that, you're losing out. Like, you definitely have to listen to what the consumers are saying about your brand, listen to how they're speaking about it, because we all know that it's not about what you tell consumers your brand is, about what they tell their friends and family your brand is. So that's what's most important. So you got to stay on top of that. So we upgraded our software. We assigned dedicated project managers to assess the data weekly and provide these key actionable insights to us on a weekly basis. So we increased from a monthly meeting with our agencies to more of a bi-weekly agency meeting, all on-call meeting. And we had to adjust our activations every quarter. We couldn't be so, set in stone. We had to really move with the times. So in order to drive engagements, because I'll get into this maybe a little bit later, we created a culture marketing system, which you mentioned earlier, Lauren, where there was a 3-tier system. So basically at the top, we had our celebrity endorsers for our brands. And these were the celebrity, endorsers that promoted our brand on their social channels at events and things like that. Obviously, with events being out of the way, they spent a lot more time promoting the brands on their social channels, their Instagrams and Twitters and things like that. But as you know, if you work in influencer marketing, working with celebrities, the purpose of working with celebrities is to have reach, large reach, but you're not having that intimate connection with your consumers. So we fill that gap with a second tier, which are the micro influencers and macro influencers that are usually like influencers online with 10,000 to 200,000 followers. So they were able to get more into the intimate connections and drive those messages directly to the consumers. And then we rounded that out with strategic partnerships with media companies. That could be with bloggers, all the way to like a media company, like a Complex or, Fader or something like that. So we use all 3 of those systems to create this always on marketing model that aims to really keep our brands top of mind and consideration, so that whether you online or whether you actually pop out to a store or whatever, you're going to see and engage with a piece of content from our brands. We also increased. Sorry,
go ahead. I was going to say, it's kind of interesting. You've got the brick and mortar 3-tier system that we know all too well, that's been around for decades. And then you've got this new 3-tier social 3-tier interaction with the celebrities, the intimate interactions, and then the agencies that are coming in to help market your brand. That's very cool.
Yeah,
Tell us more.
It was so important. It was so important. And also during this time, we engaged in more virtual events, because as you all know, virtual events became very popular during that time. So one example would be during Cinco de Mayo, which we all love, a very popular holiday. Cinco de Mayo, we brought on DJ Alex Sensation, which is a popular DJ out of Miami, and 21 Savage, who's a hip hop artist from Atlanta. We combined the 2 of them, had them host an event. We invited 60 influential consumers to Twitch. We sent them a bottle of Avion tequila and offered Drizzly and Reserve Bar codes to the wider audience that watched the event, so they can order the products during the event or after the event. So those are just some ways that we were, able to engage and keep our brands top of mind and considered.
Very cool. And what tools are you using to kind of track all of that? Are you using one consolidated system, or what do you see happening in that's taking place right now?
Sorry. Part of one of the tools we use was Sprout, the software called Sprout. We use that, and then just one of the things that I love personally is just doing focus groups with our influencers and our team that's actually on the ground, actually, day to day engaging with the consumers, checking their personal analytics, getting with them on personal testimonies of what's happening. So moving away from the AI or moving away from the analytics to really get real personal human, observations was very important to us.
Cool. All right. So we've heard the marketing aspect from Kareem. Alex, you're a part of our tried and true brick and mortar 3-tier system that we know all too well. So what are you doing to drive sales engagements at RNDC?
So we are constantly trying to drive the value of utilizing the platform within RNDC. As the product manager for Grapevines at RNDC, I consider myself to really have 3 different types of customers. So I have our suppliers, right? Our sales team and our accounts. It's like, I consider it kind of like a trifecta. We need to constantly make sure that these 3 customers are constantly engaged within the tool. So let's start off with our suppliers, for example. They use Grapevines by pushing their KPIs, objectives, national or local programs, their yearly priorities, as well as incentives through Grapevines in the form of a survey or an objective, right?
Yes.
This is a great vehicle for our teams to know exactly what our suppliers want our teams to execute at an account level. The next
There's
thing
nothing worse.
is,
I'm going to interrupt you. There's nothing worse than being a supplier, giving your distributor an incentive and having no visibility into what's being tracked or how far along the progress is or who's leading the incentive, who's going to win the challenge. So yeah, I can attest to having
definitely
that visibility.
Grapevines has bridged the gap there and made that visibility pretty seamless. So we're very thankful. I think we forget about what that world looked like before a lot of times, right?
Right.
That world has been so popular at RNDC that we don't remember what it was like before, We've had Grapevines for such a long time. So
the second part of your trifecta, yes.
Our sales teams, right? We want them to utilize the tool because they care about 2 things, right? Saving them time and them earning more money at the end of the day. That's what's important to them. And by managing their accounts through Grapevines, through account calls or account information, or updating their contact information, like I mentioned earlier, this will pretty much cut them time in administering their accounts, as well as give their managers an insight of what's going on in their accounts. And it makes them covering when they have to cover for their territories, like someone's out on leave or sick or out on PTO, it makes it a lot easier for their manager, right?
Yes.
Once they are in the account, they should know exactly what needs to be executed on by accessing their surveys or objectives, right? Because like I mentioned earlier, that's how we communicate the priorities. This could be by either putting a display in a certain location or the importance of a certain shelf adjacency, or maybe on the on-premise side, a certain, feature or menu mention in an account.
I love hearing that the methodology is coming from the top and it's being pushed down to the reps with a touch of a button in the platform, right? The sales execution platform. And so now they know exactly what their managers want them to do and they know how to execute against it. I love that. I love that push down methodology. Yeah. Sorry, continue.
Yeah, we especially like in a lot of, at RNDC, we're going from like a very maybe decentralized type of concept to like a very centralized, like we want all, when we represent a supplier across multiple markets and there are like national priorities, and we want all those markets to execute on those priorities, not to them be siloed in a certain environment, right? And then this definitely helps us drive that vehicle. And then the last thing we have is it leads to the accounts that we service, right? A good CRM tool, what it really does is build value for your business, right? It opens up vital communication channels and it creates like a client-focused type of knowledge base. And at the end of the day, we just want our associates that are going into the accounts, our sales team, be aware of the customer's need and service those needs, right? And so that's kind of how it all comes together.
Yep, identifying the pain points and delivering on it, finding those easy sells, and then pushing for the hard ones.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so moving on to our third question. Both of you have worked with larger leading organizations, as we've discussed. Did you feel like you had an advantage in this new age of selling, working with those larger organizations? Alex, you're with the biggest gun of the group here, RNDC. What are your thoughts?
Okay, so throughout my career, I've mostly worked with a large leading organization, and there are definitely many advantages to kind of play in this environment. Large companies have resources, they have structure, they have order, and they have stability, which lays a great foundation. And I can say, since 2016, Grapevines has been a part of R&DC's DNA. And having that foundation of a CRM tool laid years ago before the pandemic, it definitely made the disruption a lot more manageable, right? We weren't scrambling for a CRM tool or a way of, getting in contact with our customers or having a centralized place of information. We were more focused on the quality and the creation of the content that was supposed to be housed in that CRM tool during the pandemic. That was pretty much like I mentioned in, our first question was, hey, collection of contact information. It's great that it's there, but is it up to date? Is it is this the person I should be in contact with? Is there an email and a phone number? Right. So that's kind of what we were driving. And it was also a way of, communicating with our sales teams, right? We were able to communicate across all our organization through Grapevine on how to best own the opening once their on-premise accounts started, coming on the grid again, right? And kind of help them and build them up for success. So I was very happy to be part of such an organization that is forward thinking and decided that it was important at a distributor level to have a CRM tool. And so we were focused more on the content that we were gathering and utilizing that content correctly instead of just, setting up having to build a CRM tool or put one into place during a pandemic.
Yes. We're thankful that you were early adopters too, and you've been using the tool and we've honed it, we've refined it, and now we've got it running perfectly. Well, not perfectly, but running like a smooth engine, right? All right, Kareem.
Yeah, definitely.
You've hopped around with a lot of big name brands. What have you seen in your experience?
I mean, it's no secret. I work with a huge company, Pernod Ricard, huge multinational, company. But I personally was fortunate enough to lead a very entrepreneurial department, which was focused on, really embedding those brands at the forefront of millennial culture. So with that big goal, which is a huge goal, I was provided the freedom to kind of think outside the box and explore new things in this new age of selling. So I work with brands such as Martell Cognac, Avion Tequila, and Jameson, which is the larger of the group, which
We've
were
heard
all
of those.
coach.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. So they're all very culture, lifestyle forward brands that were much more about, again, lifestyle versus more traditional legacy. So it gave me an advantage over some of the more, stable, I won't say stable, more legacy, traditional focused brands at the company in the portfolio. So as an example, I was able to explore things such as sneaker partnerships, sneaker collaborations as a retail sweepstakes program. So going back to that, during this pandemic, we partnered with John Geiger, who's a very popular upscale sneaker designer. We partnered with him to create an exclusive shoe that we use as part of a national sweepstakes program, which got a lot of PR, a lot of earned media, and we were able to really do that in a way that probably would not have been possible if it was other brands that were outside of that cultural lifestyle space. So I was fortunate to really just be a lot more entrepreneurial and agile during this time.
Sounds like you're the best of both worlds, working with a big brand where you have the stability, you have, the brand recognition, but then you're part of this smaller group that's able to pivot more quickly, because that's what we know is the one downside of working with the larger organizations. There's a lot of red tape. There's a lot of, channels things have to be processed through and approved. But if you're on that smaller team, you can be able to make quicker decisions, adjust more quickly to the very rapidly changing environment around us.
Very true.
Okay, well, we're on to our last planned question for today. Then we're going to jump to our audience's questions. This one, we've seen this one before in our other webinar series. We're going to ask you guys the same question to get your insights. Has 2020 changed the way you use data forever, or are you seeing a return to more typical use moving forward? Alex, what do you got for us?
So Lauren, that's actually a great question. So we use data gathered through various avenues to drive most business decisions made daily, right, in most organizations. In the industry, our on-premise world changed quickly from one day to the next. So even when we didn't have feet on the ground, we continued on interacting with our customers. One example is just, we developed a survey in Grapevines to track the ever-changing statuses of accounts during the pandemic. Were they open? Were they open with restrictions, right? Were they temporarily closed?
Yeah.
Were they permanently closed? And if they were open, what type of services were they offering? Dine-in, takeout, or both, right? As you know, we get updates. Oh, things are open. Oh, well, things are closed again. Well, that affected our industry directly because we wanted to make sure that these accounts that were opening were being serviced, right? So having to realign those, routes and making sure, hey, okay, this group of accounts in this market have opened. Well, we need to make sure we have a rep going into those accounts and servicing those accounts. Or if they're closed, we need to make sure that they're calling their account. And, if they're doing takeout, or to go, I live in Dallas, right? So in Texas, then to go drinks became a thing, right? So are they able to service that? And pretty much 2020 has changed the way we use data. We are gathering data just like we did before. The difference is now is the questions that we're asking ourselves based on the data that we're gathering. And these questions pretty much are creating conversations that are leading to decisions. So they're impacting the end result.
That's the key metric, right? If you have your data and you view it and you do nothing with it, what's the point? If it's not driving business decisions, then you're measuring the wrong things that aren't important to you, right? So I love that you guys used a previous tool, the survey tool, and you tweaked it with now the new purpose of finding the new account status. One, there was probably just open and closed. Now there's 5 options on that list now. All right, Kareem, do you have anything to add? How have you seen the data?
Yeah, I'll add something from a marketing perspective. This is a really good question. 2020 has really changed the data analytics behavior for myself because outside world is reopening, but there are some things that we know that continue on in this new normal. We know consumers are going to continue to explore social media. They still continue to spend more screen time. They're going to continue to, stream entertainment. They're going to continue to shop for products on Amazon and all these other sites, live streams sites. They're continuing to use their smartphones and laptops in moderation, maybe in more moderation now, but they're going to continue to use it. The direct-to-consumer model will continue to disrupt retail, entertainment, and all aspects of our society. So as marketers, we have to continue to have an always-on social listening model that allows us to extract these key actionable real-time insights and be able to adjust and mobilize our resources in real time to remain competitive. So I envision this trend that we're seeing to stay the same, at least for the foreseeable future. I do see more challenges around data privacy laws, though, and consumers and overall just consumers having an unfavorable sentiment around their data being tracked and used by marketers.
Right.
I see consumers getting more curious about that and figure out ways to try to block it or protest it. So that's something to look out for from a legislative standpoint. But other than that, I see a lot staying the same and evolving.
Yes. Well, you can only stare at your phone screen for so many hours in the day before you start to get cross-eyed too, right? So,
right.
I mean, personally speaking, I've experienced some virtual fatigue, if you were going to call it that. And so it'll be interesting to see how the two play together as we go back into a social society and, go out to lunch with friends and then also choose to stay at home for certain opportunities and download immense amount of content on the internet.
Yeah, I agree.
On the similar topic, I was checking out our Q&A chat box while we were talking, and we have a follow-up question to our discussion that's taking place right now. Looks to be from a supplier. They're saying that they have seen a high adoption of virtual interactions with their brand. Do you both see this trend continuing, kind of along the lines of what we were talking about? Kareem, do you have anything more to add?
That's a really good question, and I'm excited because I actually that's a topic I'm very passionate about. So I see more blending of the two worlds, the physical world and the virtual world. So I see more sophisticated, scalable virtual reality technology that'll be used by marketers. I see more. I'm not sure if you're familiar with product seeding kits, but I see more product seeding kits being distributed by entertainment companies and product companies that allow consumers at home to participate in the virtual experiences. So they're not just watching their
Cool.
screens, they're actually participating. I see more physical events now that the world's opening up that integrate virtual reality on site. And I just see more live stream events with in-person crowds. So these are some things that I see that started in the pandemic a little bit, but now that we're moving into the next phase of the pandemic recovery, I see those things being sustained as well as evolving. So
Very exciting. I want to get a virtual seating kit. What did you call it?
Yeah, me too.
Product seeding kit,
Product
virtual
seating kit?
product seeding
Yes.
kit. Yeah. Yeah.
Great. We'll have to incorporate that in our next webinar. Awesome. Okay, looks like we've got one more question, at least time for one more question. Kareem, this one's for you as well. Alex, if you have anything to add, please jump in. Kareem, was there a specific way you tracked sentiment?
Yes. So
Virtually, in person?
yeah. So the software that we used, Sprout, was able to track sentiment. We
Okay.
also, even though this wasn't real time, we looked at Prime data. So Prime data, even though it's like a year out, 6 months out, we looked at that before the pandemic, and we compared it to Sprout, which was more real time data and analytics, way to see if there's been any shift in the brand sentiment. And again, like I mentioned earlier, I like to get personal personal feedback from the influencers that were dealing with the consumers day to day on their Instagram handles and Twitter and things like that, to check in with them to see what their audience is saying about the brand. So outside the analytics, but yeah.
All right.
Those are the ways.
Love it. Social listening. I gotta keep an eye on what people are saying about grapevines. All right. Well, looking at time, that's all the time we have today to answer live questions. But if we didn't get to your particular question, we'll be sure to follow up with you directly. But overall, we'd like to thank you for joining us at home for today's discussion. And we'd, of course, like to especially take time to thank Alex and Kareem for taking the time to share their experiences with us. You guys are a lot of fun. We loved your energy. And it was awesome hearing of your insights from the next generation of BevAlc industry pioneers. Hey. Yay.
Hey.
Love it. We hope you found the information you heard today valuable and entertaining. One common theme we've learned from our guests from this entire series is that staying on top of your data is key to successfully navigate change within the beverage industry. If you weren't able to attend the first two parts of this webinar series, be sure to catch the replays to learn more about the insights we're referring to. That's a wrap from all of us here at Grapevines. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and cheers, everyone.